Hello, good evening, and welcome. I'm John Lazarus with Stories Matter and D&D Publishing. If you've ever been caught in the rain without an umbrella, or caught in the middle of a murder of crows without an umbrella to fend off their attacks because they followed you to work after remembering that you were the one who threw rocks at them to be quiet that morning on your lawn, even though you live 25 miles from your office, then you've experienced one of fiction's most timeless conflicts, man versus nature. This is the third installment in our 6-part series about the key conflicts in literature. For those who hate themselves for what their father did to them, you can check out this video. And for those who hate their father for what he did to them, then this video might be more up your alley. Man versus nature conflicts are different than any other conflict in fiction. Nature has no motives, plan, or vendetta. Characters are fighting against something that has no awareness that they exist at all. This is relatable because it reminds so many readers of their love lives. But it's also relatable because this conflict has been with us since caveman times, when leopards would come and take our children in the dead of night instead of the elders who made up a bunch of bullshit rules for our tribes to follow. And yet, with all our modern technology, it's a conflict that's just as relevant to our lives today. If you're anything like me, you've probably lost loved ones to cholera and rabies, with no cure in sight. And the greatest blow to my publishing career was not a vindictive agent or publisher, nor was it a lack of self-confidence. It was actually a fire that destroyed D&E offices in 2021, and while the courts argued that it was caused by my business partner siphoning electricity from a nearby building, making it more of a man versus technology conflict, once the fire got out of control, it really just became man versus the natural melting point of human flesh. We'll trek across vast deserts and gun down ravenous herds of deadly goats on this edition of Stories Matter. Today's video is brought to you by nothing. If you've watched every video on this channel and purchased every item and service I've advertised, well, according to my research, you burned down about 95 acres of rainforest and caused at least one species of amphibian to go extinct. Now you might be saying, if that's the case, John, why'd you advertise those services in the first place? What's with the sudden change of heart? Well, maybe it's just the news stories about the acceleration of the rise in global temperatures that changed my mind. Or maybe it's the fact that my South Carolina beach house was recently swallowed by the sea. Now you might follow that up by asking, but are we supposed to just stop buying things entirely? And wasn't your house destroyed not by rising sea levels and eroding seafronts, but rather shoddy construction materials and the developer's insistence that even if the property were to fall into the sea, it would float and be easily converted into a houseboat? And I'd say, well, we should all be more conscious about the things that we buy and base fewer of our decisions on the 1977 classic The Spy Who Loved Me so we don't also seriously damage our vehicles. Tip 1. Use nature to reveal character. Much like alcohol, a man versus nature conflict will often reveal a person's true identity. Back in 2018, when D&E Publishing was really taking off as a company, I took my employees on a scavenger hunt through the wilderness of southern Utah. Groups were paired off with nothing but a half bottle of water, a compass, a magnifying glass, an emergency flare, and a copy of a survival guide that I wrote but decided not to publish because it wasn't profitable. I quickly learned which people were the strivers, and which were the cowards who immediately went to their cars afraid they'd die of dehydration. I also learned a lot about myself, particularly that I'm not a great planner and I don't have a great understanding of how much damage emergency flares can cause during the dry season. In your fiction, you should similarly use natural calamities to reveal character strengths and flaws. In Castaway, for example, we learned that average humans are so resourceful they can even make friends with volleyballs. Diseases often show which of us are so self-centered that we refuse to wear a piece of cloth on our face for a few hours a day to save our fucking neighbors and grandparents. Tip 2. Make nature specific. Don't just say that a storm is approaching. Describe the atmospheric conditions. Is this caused by a high pressure or a low pressure system? Give barometric readings or your reader just won't buy it. I remember one reader sending me a manuscript about a bear attack. In his book, the side character was killed instantly when the bear ripped out his jugular. Having once watched a friend be killed by a bear during a camping trip, I knew that the bear would likely start by eating his abdomen and then his face before he slowly died of blood loss. I rejected the book on the spot. But you also have to be specific about what nature can't do. If your snake finds a way to open doors, or your Ebola finds a way to drive a car, well, then we're moving into man versus the supernatural territory. Tip 3. Don't ignore the cost. Conflict needs to have consequences for it to be interesting. If your party ventures across dangerous terrain and comes out on the other side never losing a member or an important item, your reader won't feel anything. And it's just not true to life. Hardly a day goes by where I don't think about my employees lost in that fire at D&E offices, and also that homeless man who would use our lobby as a quiet place to shoot heroin after 7 p.m. But you don't have to kill people just to titillate your reader. A cost can manifest itself in many different ways. Jurassic Park has loss of life, sure, but the greater cost I've always found is that the kids will never get to enjoy this awesome park, and investors won't be able to recover their losses. And in my novel, Canucks Amok, about a Canadian zombie invasion, the loss of life pales in comparison to the devastation caused by socializing the American healthcare system. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll leave you with this week's This Day in Literary History. See you on the next one.